Thanks for tuning in this morning. I hope everyone had a nice long weekend. As you've probably seen from the sign-up sheet, today we're going to be covering change management, strengthening your position with BIM. So first of all, another quick introduction to Rapid 5D. We are BIM and VDC consultants. We are resellers and users of the latest technologies from Trimble to maximize BIM efficiencies and working, such as Vico Office, which again we're going to use today, and we offer advice and guidance into taking the steps into BIM, but also implementing BIM within your business as a whole and working a bit leaner. So today we're going to look at 2D revision comparison and analysis. So what happens when we get some new drawings in? How are we able to quickly identify that change? 3D takeoff quantity change identification. That's more of a recap of what we covered last week. Cost and program impact analysis. So what happens when those costs start changing? How do we manage the packages? How do we track the package changes? And how do we track resource change and things like that? Value engineering evaluation. So before we get the instruction, when we're just talking with the client about possible changes, how do we quickly value the various different options? And then finally, reporting and evidence generation. So we're going to cover that sort of in between everything else. So at each stage, what sort of evidence can we create using the database inside Vico? And once again, as always, we'll be using Vico Office for this demonstration. So we've got 3D visualization, got a bit of clash detection, there's 3D and 2D takeoff, 4D scheduling, and 5D estimating. And the key thing about Vico is how we tie all of that stuff together into one consistent database. So I will just quickly switch my view over. Okay, so as usual, we're back in Vico Office Document Controller, and I've got some models, a couple of revisions of some models in here, and also some drawings. I've uploaded both revisions of these just to save a bit of time, but we've got our architectural model, and we've got our structural model. So just to show you how this project's packed out, we've got a takeoff in here, which is the automatically generated takeoff that Vico creates. And if you're interested in this, you can go back and watch one of our past webinars where I go through and explain, but for now you can just see the doors and everything highlighting and the count that's been taken off. I've also got an estimate in this project, again NRM1 structure. I can drill down here. This is fully resourced out. I've got some locations as well, cut already. So I've got all my different levels and my west and east locations. I have also got a program, and with Vico I can arrange that in the flow line view you see here, but also in a standard Gantt view. And we could drill down into more detail on the various elements. So pretty similar to what you're used to seeing. And then finally, for this demonstration, I've set up a work package. So I have a internal wall package set up. Obviously you can have a huge number of packages, but in here all I've done is just drop the internal walls from my NRM1 structure. So there's a masonry, hollow core and prefab. And if you're interested in how to do this, again, go back and watch one of the previous webinars and we go through that. So inside this work package, I've got a few different bidders, and just expand that out and go across the various different bids. So for now, I've got one bidder at the bid approval state. and so they have been tentatively awarded this contract. Next thing I'm going to do is create some tags for these approval states. So at the minute I've got a bid and a contract approval state, but actually what I want to do is have a few in between or after the contract. So I'm just going to go in and quickly create these tags. So this is a really useful function that not many people know about in Vico. I'm just going to call them stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 for now. So we'll come back to that functionality later, but for now we'll just treat it. We've got the new set of 2D drawings in, and how do we go about assessing a change on those drawings? So we'll go in, we can do a quick document comparison, and we've covered that again in a previous webinar. So all we do is just compare the documents. We can see green is things that have been added, red is things that have been removed. I could do that for any one of those drawings. But the key is, what if you had 100 drawings? How do you go about doing this? What if everyone doesn't have Vico Office? So we've got this functionality that allows me to batch print all of these red line drawings. So I can come in here, make sure I've got this box ticked or unticked. This is the folder where I'm going to export all those drawings to. I want to make sure I select all of the drawings in the project. And I want to make sure I'm comparing the latest version to the penultimate version. So I can come back down here, and here's that folder. And inside there are all of the PDF drawings that I created, and I can open any one of those up. So this could be uploaded to your common data environment, your Trimble Connect, and sent out to the rest of the members of your team. I'm going to create a new view here, and this is something that some of you might have used before, but I can create any custom view here. So because I'm going to start looking at these drawings and creating a list of issues, I want my document register view, I want my 3D view or my 2D view, and I want to load up my issue list. So what I'm going to do is, it's all very well identifying those changes and highlighting them, but how do I actually go about creating an audit trail for each one of these? So again, compare those two drawings. And I'm just going to change the background color to solid white. Just makes it a bit easier to see. You can set this up as a default if you like, if you're doing a lot of 2D work. And I'm just going to create some quick markups. And yeah, we're going to run through this very quickly. So I'm just going to draw a quick cloud around this section. And as soon as I finish this cloud, you'll see over here in this list, that issue's been created. And it's linked with a date, a time, and also the drawing. And again, let's just view these two documents. And I can come in and add another markup. So for this drawing, I'm going to add two separate markups. So I'll do one over here on this change. And then make sure I finish that markup. And then I can add another markup. Over there. So that's created two separate issues for that. And now if I go through to the card view, as it's called, I can see each one of those issues in detail. So let's flick back to the first one I created. You can see a little thumbnail there on the right, and I can come in, I can add a priority. I can attach owners, I can start to type in descriptions. Any of these fields are reportable out, so we can start to track issues that we've raised to the architect, issues that we've raised to the client. We can track them by priority, but for now I'll just stick a little description in here. And then also, just change it back to high, also I can start to add a discussion in. So with multiple people using Vico, we can have a chat, it logs who said what, what date it was uploaded, so we can track it that way. Now, if I go back to the print documents option, I can do the exact same process as I did before. Make sure I tick all my drawings. Make sure I'm printing a comparison. And hit print. And this time, because I've marked up those drawings, and we can mark up with text and clouds as well, and because I've marked up those drawings, I've now output those markups. So if I go to the architectural 3 drawing, you can see those 2 clouds that I've just created are now on the drawing. So again, that can be shared on your Trimble Connect, your common data environment, and distributed to the team. So you can very quickly identify all the change that's occurred on these drawings. So then one of the reports we've come up with is to grab all that data we just produced and to put it into a report by drawing. So here we are. So here we've got the 2 drawings. So it's the architectural level 1 version 1 and architectural level 1 version 2. So those are the 2 drawings we compared. There's a thumbnail of the markup. That's the description we put in, and then the severity. On the next page, we've got the architectural level 3 drawing and the 2 issues that we raised there. So this is a completely customizable report. You can use it to track however you want. You can just get it to output into an Excel schedule if that was easier for you to manage. So I'm just going to run into my estimate and create a snapshot because this is important, because what I'm going to do now is activate the model. So I need to make sure I take a snapshot in time of the cost plan as it is now, because we're going to bring in a new model and then we're going to start seeing how that changes and how that changes our work package and how that changes our reporting. So back to document control again. Get that new revision of that architectural model and activate it. So this is going to take about 30 seconds. So just while that's happening, if anyone's got any questions, just in the GoToWebinar breakout column in the side, there is a questions tab that you can expand with the plus on the left. If anyone does want to ask any questions, please feel free to ask them. We'll cover them at the end. Usually get about 5 minutes for questions at the end, and I think we normally get some very useful ones. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, this is just adding up all those quantities again. So it's gone back to the new version of the model and it's quantifying it back. So now very quickly, to identify the change between that model and the original model, we can run a cost variance report. And this is the same report we ran last week, where we just look at identifying the differences between 2 different snapshots. So we want to take that before change snapshot we took earlier, the current version, and we're going to go down to detail level 7 in our cost plan. So quick graph showing you what's changed quantity-wise, and then we can scroll through this list and find the relevant sections. So if I just keep scrolling down here, I've got my internal walls and partitions. So that's the same stuff that I'd packaged up before. So I know that it's changed. So if I go over to my work package, just need to quickly unlock the package, which then allows me to make changes to it. So there's various reasons why Vico won't automatically update the quantities into the package, and that's due to the fact that you might have let it on a lump sum, you might not work on a schedule of rates for change, so all different reasons why we have to tell it to update it. So we tell it to take the new cost plan quantities and refresh the quantities in the bid manager page. So now that new 1,240 there is going to be transferred into my bidder. So I expand this out, and you can see where previously my bid was 1.45 million, it's now 1.9 million, and I'm just going to select that as a stage 1 bid. So the quantities have changed. I'm reletting it to the same subcontractor, and I've set it as a new stage, which were the tags I created earlier. So now you can see that original bid at 1.54 million, the stage 1 bid at 1.9 million, which was brought about from the change in the modelled quantities. And we can continue this all the way down. So if I open up my program as well, because of this change to the 3D model, those quantities have changed, and you can see now that that milestone, that project end milestone, we've missed it completely. So if I go to my control mode, you'll see all these little red dots here that show where the task should have been originally, and we can go into each one of those and try to mitigate that. We're going to cover that more in the 4D stuff next week, because it's a whole detail in itself, but you can also see in the Gantt view you get much the same. You get all these little sort of icons telling you, okay, we've missed this milestone and here's what we need to change in order to do it. So we'll jump back out of the schedule for now. So I'll go back to my estimate now, and what we're going to look at now is a little bit of value engineering. So once again, save a snapshot. Obviously you can have your own processes to call these something a little bit better than what I'm doing. So perhaps now the client is suggesting that we increase the internal walls in the building. So it's just a thought, maybe we want to add some more rooms. So let's just see what happens if we change this to 1,500 meters squared instead of the model-based 1,240. And we just change it up the NRM1 structure, best practice. And then the other thing is, of course, if we increase the surface area of the wall and add new rooms, we're probably going to be increasing the number of doors as well. So if I just come down here and increase the number of single door sets. So the reason we're not using the model is because at this point we're not getting the designer involved. We're purely just looking and seeing what we can do with the project, if it's going to cost us money, what the impact of that change is going to be if the employer decides to instruct us. So I've created those quantity differences. I can go back to my bid manager. I can once again unlock the package, because again we're going to have the change in quantity, so that quantity is going to go up again. So let's unlock that. And then I need to head back to define work packages, so I can do the same thing I did before, tell it that I want to bring in the new quantities from the cost plan because they've changed. So cost plan quantities again and hit update. Then back into bid manager. And I'm just reletting this to the same subcontractor each time, but you could move to a different subcontractor. You could move to a combined subcontractor. The great thing about this is we're going to be tracking the project over time. So if a new person comes on board, you get a new QS and they're wondering, okay, how do we start at 1.54 million and we've shot all the way up to 2.3 million? This is how we can show that. So I can reconfirm this, but now we're going to do it at bid stage 2. So we've got the original bid, stage 1, and now we're going in at stage 2 at 2.38 million. And once again, if I go back to my Define Work Packages page, and there we go, sorry, just waiting for that to click for a little while. So back on the Define Work Packages page, go to Summary Mode, and you can see Bid Stage 1, 1.5 million, Bid Stage 2, 1.9 million, Bid Stage 3, 2.3 million. So you can see how the project has progressed. So we shouldn't lose sight of how we got from what the current cost is to what the original cost, from what the original cost was. So key here is that you can do this on a live project, but also you can use it to forensically analyze an existing completed or part underway project. So we can feed all our data in here and then work to create the evidence after the fact. So I'm just, as well, to test out the impact of that value engineering that we looked at, I am going to have a look at the resource implications. So just one of the many reports we can run. So I can say, okay, what was my cost plan before I tested out this VE, and what does it look like after? But just look at those resources. It just takes a little while to load this up because it's comparing every aspect of that cost plan. Okay, so we can see now that because of that value engineering option, I now have on the right-hand column 130 more hours of bricklaying required. I need an additional 30 doors and an additional 30 items of ironmongery, and I need some increased block walls. So you can see there how we can tie everything together and very quickly analyze the processes or the potential change on a project without having to go back through old spreadsheets, look at various different breakdowns. By keeping it all in the same place, we can really speed up the process. So back to my presentation. So just a summary of what we've gone over. We did a batch 2D revision comparison. We then looked at the 3D quantity change identification. So again, the benefit was this project had already been set up with our locations, our program, and all of that, but we can go back and do this on a project that didn't have all that by adding it in. We've got cost and program impact analysis. We looked at that value engineering evaluation, specifically in regards to work packages, but also with resources, and then how we can report all of that data out and perhaps use it as evidence. And I've just shown you the tip of the iceberg here. We've got a few different projects with a few different companies that I can't mention, but that we're looking at taking all of their data for a project and trying to figure out exactly what happened over the course of that project so that they're in a better standing when they go into their meetings with the client or with the subcontractors to identify that change. They can very quickly have an understanding of what happened. So with that, does anyone have any questions? I'll just give it about 30 seconds or so for anyone to type in the questions. Okay, so first one, quickly, can I compare two documents that don't perfectly overlay? So I'm guessing by that you mean you brought in two documents over the top of each other and the architect has perhaps moved the view slightly or changed the scale of the drawing. It's obviously very annoying because then if we do an automated compare, those two things are all going to be completely different. So what we can do is there is an align and scale function inside document control which says, okay, these two are the same drawings and here are 2 points that match up on both those drawings. And then Vico is then going to fit those two drawings on top of each other, or at least that view, so that you're comparing apples with apples then at that point. It's the same view and you can see exactly what's changed. There is usually a section of the BIM execution plan or employer's information requirements that say revisions to drawings should not have their views changing, but obviously at this stage in the game, some people aren't abiding by every aspect of those, or we don't even have that in place. Okay, how easy is it to import drawings? It's very easy. It's a case of selecting a folder. If you want to see it in detail, you can go back to one of our previous webinars where I go into it in a bit more detail. You can also actually drag and drop from a folder. So I can take a batch of PDFs, highlight them in Windows Explorer view, and then just drop them into the relevant folder inside Vico. Okay, can I create a report which maps the change on a graph? Okay, so what we can do is, because we can output to Excel, we can create almost like a schedule. We can start to create schedules of what happened on the project at what time, and then we can use Excel to formulate that into a graph. So we could potentially see a line graph of how our cost for our substructure changed over the course of the project. And then the great thing is as well, from a benchmarking point of view, we then have an outturned, perfectly formatted database which shows what our project cost actually was. Just have a look through again. So someone's asked about a report which can combine the PDFs with that report that I showed, and that is something we're working on at the minute, to create a report which is the drawing, and then the following page is the issues associated with that drawing, with the markups and the thumbnails, then subsequent pages, the next drawing, and then the issues with that drawing. So really just one whole document that you can hand to your architect, to your client, to whoever it is, and say, right, these are all the changes that we've just spotted. Okay, so that'll do it for questions for now. If anyone's got any more, please get in touch with us at info@rapid5d.com. As always, we'll answer any questions you send through there, as long as they're not too complicated. And if you do have any other questions, we'll be back again next week, so feel free to ask them then. So next week, Tuesday the 5th of April, we've got the construction project collaboration made easy. That's using Trimble Connect, which is our online collaboration tool. So sharing files, sharing 3D models, viewing 3D models in a browser. Then next Thursday, and then the following Thursday, we've got 4D BIM, the benefits of location-based scheduling. So we're going to really go into detail in that area I sort of very briefly touched upon today, of how location-based scheduling and BIM-based scheduling is really powerful, and what we can do with it and how we can use it to our benefit. So those invitations will go out with the recap for today, and they'll also be available on our website along with all of the previous webinars. So we're really starting to build up a library here. So hopefully those of you who use Vico on a regular basis will have something to refer to going forward. So thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week, and look forward to seeing you next week.